wave of British heavy metal of the late 70s and early 80s was, to put it mildly, a legend generator. The Immortal Maiden, the Murderous Motorhead, the Savage, Raven, Saxon, Avenger, throw a dart and you'll hit a kick-ass deposit. But while many of the aforementioned past and future metal mythos luminaries called their influences from diverse sonic strata, from the blues of Angel Witch to the obvious Zeppelin worship of early Saxon, Grim Reaper, however, were pure priest, absolute, unrepentant, no-frills, fist-pumping metal with no identity issues whatsoever. My reasons for fashioning this edition of the Mythos were twofold. After hearing of the recent health woes of legendary frontman Steve Grimmett, who upon suffering a diabetes-related foot infection in South America, had a large portion of his leg amputated, I felt myself stirred to action. We'll discuss this more near the end of this video, but anyone who knows me knows I have never shilled. I don't fillet my fanboys for Patreon donations. I don't even have a fucking Patreon. I don't bullshit, and I don't advertise. But if there's a more worthy crowdfunding endeavor than to put a heavy metal legend back on his feet after being ass-fucked by his insurance company and stranded in South America, I've certainly never seen it. The link is in the description. Consider donating, buying a few records, and maybe a shirt from their website, which, after hearing their unceasingly savage discography, I suspect may be an outright fucking reflex. The other reason, of course, is I wanted to see if I could devote a Mythos episode to a band I'm not particularly familiar with. And until just a few weeks ago, outside of a tune or two, I wouldn't have known Grim Reaper from Grim Fandango. What I discovered, however, is a leaning tower of consistency. A band that album after album, year after year, continues to fucking shred. They dominated the decade of the 80s, and since returning through hails of hellfire just last year under the lawsuit-friendly moniker of Steve Grimmett's Grim Reaper, they appear to have picked right the fuck up where they left off. Without further delay, let's dive dick first into the new wave of British heavy metal maestros, Grim fucking Reaper!
What is Grim Reaper music?
Grim Reaper music, you could say it's metal with melody. I think that's where we're scoring here at the moment. We all like to, or I especially like to put a lot of melody into what we do, and I think we've succeeded in that so far.
Is it true that the band was discovered as part of a Battle of the Bands?
Yeah, we won 2 Battle of the Bands in succession. The first one of the judges was a guy called Roy Wood from a band called Wizard. Mm-hmm. So that got us in a recording studio where Judas Priest recorded.
In many ways, Grim Reaper was the right band at the wrong time, materializing in the mid-80s. By the time the band's inaugural ass punch, See You in Hell, hit the shelves, the new wave of British heavy metal had already hit the skids, with many of its most strident disciples like Angel Witch and Avenger already fading fast, if not outright deceased. And even many of the more successful acts like Saxon were already struggling to cope with an industry suddenly overtaken by radio-friendly Def Leppard metal. And then the coven of kick-ass, Grim Reaper, kicked down the front fucking door with a beast of a record. Signed to hole-in-the-wall punk label Ebony Records, the very same outfit that would ultimately be largely responsible for the annihilation of the very same band. The production on this record lapses well into lo-fi territory, which for late 70s, early 80s NWOBHM was badass squared, but for more polished, transparent priest worshippers like Grim Reaper, probably goes a long way to explaining why such an exceptional record went largely undiscovered throughout the decade. In fact, until Beavis and Butthead strung together a procession of lazy fat jokes for their fellow grunge-humping goofs in the 1990s, most people weren't even aware Grim Reaper even recorded a fucking video.
Whoa, look at his face.
Yeah, his face sucks. I think these guys played at the state fair last year.
Yeah. They won a blue ribbon in the pig contest.
But with that bit of 90s nonsense still nearly a decade distant, it was up to the band themselves to craft a killer debut, and kill it fucking does. Slinger Nick Bocott savages the 6-string with a laser precision to rival even titans of the genre like Brian May, George Lynch, or even Eddie Van Halen. But the weakest link by far, sorry fanboys, is the dogshit drum work of Lee Harris. Let's go! kick drum or John Goodman's heartbeat? We report, you decide. Fortunately, Lee wasn't long for this band, and apart from a few errant fuck-ups, he stays well the fuck out of the way of the songwriting, which is exceptional by the by. Embracing brevity over braggadocio, See You in Hell hit hard without once wearing out its welcome. Balls out British metal with fist held high, and among the strongest opening salvos from any band of their era. Buy it, lovingly caress it, but goddamn listen to it. Next!
So, long story short, I'm backstage at a White Zombie concert, and Mike Judge is there. He's like this big on me. Looks like an accountant. And Walter said to me, he said, do you want to have some fun with this guy? I said, sure. And I can't repeat the words I said, because you're on TV, but I basically said, you effing see, how dare you do this to me? But I couldn't keep a straight face, so I was just laughing. I started laughing almost immediately and said to him, if you thought the first video was funny, you should see the second one. We had an amphibious landing craft. And the third one was in a prison with the Toxic Avenger, and he's like, I'll find them.
It's like, these guys suck so bad, they have to go to their concert in these armored vehicles.
You know that singer? He looks a little better in this video. It's like he doesn't look as ugly. Never mind.
Yeah. It's too bad he's not good looking like me.
Fucking relentless! As impressive an opening outing as See You in Hell was, Fear No Evil surpasses it in every respect. More direct, more polished, with not one track clocking in over 5 minutes, and most not exceeding the 3-minute mark. Catchy as the clap and twice as hard to shake. If you dare to spin this record once, it will fuse to your Victrola for fucking eternity. Best of all, seeing as Lee Harris couldn't find a beat if he was tits up in a taproot orchard, Grim Reaper enlisted the infinitely superior Mark Simon. The results were as immediate as they were merciless.
We will fight them to the last. As the warriors surround our meager force, we begin to let the battle take its course.
And the upgrade isn't the sole domain of the drums. Everything about the band has leveled the fuck up since the last record. Steve Grimmett's piercing shriek is pitch perfect. Nick Bocott's guitar screams from track to track, and the bass is inaudible as fucking always. Sorry, bassist. Learn to play a fucking guitar and maybe you won't have to make a 9-to-5 career out of pulling the drummer's sloppy seconds. Better still, with additional support in America from the omnipowerful RCA, they had an actual budget and could spring for a proper promo video. Bitchin' medieval finery, pyros, hot bitches, and honest to Lemmy spike-bespeckled hover tank. But with all those simoleons going to siege engines, it's just a shame they didn't sprinkle some on the fucking monster costumes. The eponymous Grim Reaper is apparently played by Joan Rivers after an acid bath, and what in the fuck is this supposed to be? Don't judge, Lou Ferrigno needed the work in the 80s. No, actually, wait, I think I've seen this episode of Faulty Towers.
Hello, I am English. Hello. How are you, sir? I can speak English. Hello, Major. How are you today?
Power Rangers outtakes notwithstanding, Fear No Evil is a stellar second release, laying unrepentant waste to the very concept of the dreaded sophomore slump. Better still, it corrects every other band's disconcerting lack of cover art featuring skeletons driving motorcycles through stained glass fucking windows. Valiant attempt, Breaker, but no cigar. If there's one Achilles heel, it's that the production, while improved, isn't quite there yet. But Grim Reaper, we're about to fix the fuck out of that. Sadly, by this point, the record company's avaricious advances had gone from heavy petting to 5-alarm ass-fucking, with label Ebony Records suing the band into oblivion for effectively fucking nothing, resulting in the untimely dissolution of one of the most promising bands of the era as a result.
You know, we were signed to a label in England called Ebony Records. Well, they breached the contract, so we left and went to RCA full time. Then, within weeks, we were being sued by Ebony Records, so that's basically why it just dropped off the charts, because nobody was interested in taking on a band that had got that sort of trouble.
But they went bust and claimed us as an asset, so the British Treasury have got part of it.
Fortunately, the ass munch in question fared about as well as a shitbag in a Charles Bronson film.
We ended up here with a big lawsuit issue with a record company in England who ripped us off, but he ended up being exposed by a national TV show, and he went bankrupt literally overnight.
Right.
But the band had already dissolved then, and they'd already moved me to America. But
Worse still, the band were soon embroiled in yet another lawsuit with their American distributor, RCA Records, who had an alarming proclivity for losing hundreds of thousands of dollars in royalties right the fuck up their nasal cavities. Hey, don't judge, it was the 80s, even my household pets had a coke habit. And sadly, this Days of Our Lives dog shit overshadowed not only a superb record, but one many Grim Reaper fans argue was in fact the finest of their career. From the melody to the metal, every solitary element of the band's previous releases is present upon the first headcount, but it's what's different that defines Rock You to Hell, and the name of that divergence is some actual fucking production.
See the full moon rising high up in the sky. The mist surrounds you, and you know you're gonna die. Not in the vampire, he's only looking for your life.
Thanks to an engineer with marginal fucking competence turning the knobs instead of yanking theirs, Rock You to Hell took Grim Reaper from NWOBHM aspirants to a band that at least sonically were absolutely worthy of mention in the same breath as the likes of Motorhead, Priest, and Saxon. Better yet, they broke into film! And by film, I mean in the loosest possible Skinamax after 1 a.m. pepperoni nipple pacemaker scar sense of the word.
Need to know what's right. Now I know I have to fight. Rock for freedom, taking it all away.
With catchier choruses and more pristine production, Rock You to Hell serves as something of a sonic rainbow bridge between Grim Reaper and Steve Grimmett's more melodic, latter-year hair metal project, Lion's Heart. For all the fucking good it did, with Ebony and RCA lawyers riding a luge down the base of their ass cracks, by 1988, Grim Reaper had effectively dissolved. Just another name on the Olympian fuckpile of talented metal acts that failed to subsist into the flannel-plated 90s. Steve Grimmett went on to front English thrash legends Onslaught, one of my very favorite bands in the genre for the record, on an insultingly underrated power thrash offering entitled In Search of Sanity.
This place is a in search of sanity. In search of sanity.
By the dawn of the 90s, with thrash withering up and blowing the fuck away along with anything the fuck else worth listening to, he'd formed a band called Lion's Heart, who released a string of spectacular albums throughout the decade and beyond. Guitarist Nick Bocott, for whatever reason, effectively faded from view, working with guitar companies doing demonstrations and design. Not a bad gig, mind you, but for a technician of his caliber, I mean, if Avril Lavigne can get paid to play guitar, what in the actual fuck music industry?
He's got tendonitis, no, carpal tunnel problems.
Oh, okay.
And he can't feel these two fingers, and he can't do anything with them. So that came to a head a few days ago, and he called us up and said the doctor says so, got to rest him.
And then after a handful of one-off festival reunions, the gauntlet was thrown. Steve Grimmett, albeit with an entirely different fucking band at his back, was reforming Grim fucking Reaper. Sorta, kinda.
Your band broke up for the first time in 1988.
We had a lot of legal shit going on, and that came the demise of the band, unfortunately.
A demise that would see Grim Reaper laying dormant, but yet, like a massive, throbbing black phoenix, you have risen from the ashes. Why have you continued to carry the Grim Reaper flag into battle after all these years?
Our audience demanded I think that's why we're back, because the bands are not writing old school rock, and the kids love it.
Nick didn't want me to go out with the name Grim Reaper. He just wanted, you know, so that's why I said, well, look, you know, I can call it Steve Grimmett's Grim Reaper. I mean, you know, I did write half the stuff, you know, and he didn't have a problem with that. He just didn't want to have, he didn't want me to go out as Grim Reaper because he didn't think that it was. And of course it wasn't, because it wasn't the original members.
If you wanted to be exceptionally petty and pedantic, after an errant glance at the lineup, you could easily dismiss this as being more like Lion's Heart 3.0 than Grim Reaper 2.0. As far as this aviator wearing asshat's concerned, if it's merciless, metallic, and melodic, it's Grim Goddamn Reaper by any other name. And listening to the sterling shreddery of former Lion's Heart axe wielder Ian Nash, it's hard to muster even the beginnings of a fucking complaint. Feel free to vacuum the remains of your face from the fucking floor. Steve Grimmett's Grim Reaper may not be sonically identical to the original incarnation of the band, but with a shredfest like this, I dare you to give a fuck. Grimmett's voice has been astonishingly well preserved, and his loose conglomeration of former Steve Grimmett band and Lion's Heart players will have you headbanging your ass clean the fuck off. With positive reviews being fired at the band like a critical fucking chain gun, it seemed Grim Reaper were poised for a second run. And then, tragedy, and sadly the inspiration for this video struck from the blue.
For nearly a year now, he had a diabetic ulcer on his foot. He's been seeing the nurse every week. He's been really looking after it, and he's had no problems with it whatsoever. And it was really healing very, very nicely before they went to South America. A week or 10 days, something happened to that. I don't know what. And that is what got infected. And they said, we've got to get you into surgery now. We can't wait. The infection has already spread from your toes to your knee on your right leg. And if we don't operate now, you will lose your whole leg, if not more.
And really, I just can't wait to get out to start getting, you know, a new leg and getting sorted and getting back out there to see my fans, you know, and obviously to thank all of you guys. And I want to do that personally, you know.
Not only did Grimmett's leg have to be amputated, his insurance company refused on the basis of a technicality to cover the cost. Socialism. And so he's left bedridden and stranded in a South American country, monetarily unable to pay for the treatment he needs. As rock stars the world over, from former Venom frontman Tony the Demolition Man Dolan to Neil Turbid, rally and fundraise the fight, he's far from alone. But the man is still in a very desperate situation. So, Mythos faithful, you know I've never asked you to support a Kickstarter or crowdfunding campaign before, and I'm not necessarily breaking that trend now, but if you dig the tunes and find yourself so inclined, let's get one of the greatest frontmen in rock back in action and cranking out Grim Reaper goodness. Even if you don't want to donate, hit up their official site, grab some merch or a CD. You've heard their music by now, so you know damn well it's worth the fucking shekels. Until I emerge once more for the myths and the mythos. I'm Razorfist, wishing a fervent Godspeed to Steve Grimmett, vocalist of one of my new favorite bands, Grim fucking Reaper. Mythos out!
And you haven't gone unnoticed. Have you seen this guy? He looks like the wolf from the video. Except he had fucking muscles. Good effort, man, good effort.